Welcome to Everyone Racers, a show designed for the world of low-dollar racing and oddball car culture. It doesn't matter what kind of limit champ or lucky track dog league you run, SCCA or NASA, we don't discriminate, as long as you drive it hard and built it yourself. Join us each week for tech discussions, tips and tricks, as well as news and notes from the world of amateur endurance racing. And whether it's on the spot, hella sweet, or we're lucky enough, and Chrissy gives us just the tip, we're sure you'll giggle a little and learn even less. Everyone report to the paddock.
This is Chris.
This is Chrissy.
And I'm Mental.
Yay! Mental's back. We're Everyone Racers. Welcome to a Chrysler Hemi engine episode of our podcast. It's episode 354. The 354 was first released in 1956 in the New Yorker, 300B, and the Imperial Custom and Crown. It was also modified for the 57 Dodge D510 and the C Series pickup. Not driving your late 50s Dodge, that's probably for the best. And yeah. So nice to see you.
Hello,
Thanks for coming back to this podcast here. No. Stuff gets in the way. It's all good.
Well, and luckily we have a developed enough network to where you guys were operating fairly seamlessly.
As did you when we were gone. So that's how we roll.
That is indeed how we roll. I think I only sent Chris like I think I sent you both the feedback and that your mom absolutely deserves a cool shirt. While she's baking.
And then we tried to figure out how to make that happen.
Yep.
So if you're an inventive engineer type person and a non-bulky, appropriate and good-looking cool shirt idea for a
wow, that is loaded. That's a lot of stipulations here. That's her favorite color.
we know smart people.
I true, and I'm sure they have other things to do. All right, Mental,
Yes.
you have a lot on this list. Let's hear what you've got working on. What you got working on.
So yes, I have not been here the last couple of weeks. So thanks for Tim, who was going to join us, but he's got family obligations tonight, so he can't make it either. Tim and you guys for stepping up and taking care of everything. And Chris had probably every bit of 10, 15 minutes to learn the software that he ran the show with. And
Maybe 20. Yeah.
So, and then I had like the initial delay of getting the combined episode because we had the truncated episode last week was exacerbated by my Airbnb's very, very slow interwebs. So I was out of town working in Coronado and San Diego area, and my new travel plans, while the government pays for my travel, I'm not under the same restrictions. Actually, I pay for my travel and the government reimburses me. So I chose a lovely Airbnb in Imperial Beach, walking distance from just absolutely amazing food and coffee everywhere. And Mexican mochas are now my new jam. I got to catch up with my friend.
Oh, what is that?
So
Tell me.
It's like a mocha, except they add just a little bit of what I believe is habanero and cinnamon, just enough to give it just a very slight edge.
Because I'm a Mexican coffee fan. When we go to Mexico, that's all I have. So a mocha plus a Mexican coffee is like, that's like the sun, actually, is what's happening right now.
Yeah. And
wow.
So, I was on the initially on the first floor. They moved me up to the second floor, so I had an ocean view. I could not complain. And all the other guys that were my whole office, we all had to scatter, and they were everywhere in California, including some really just absolute armpit places like El Centro. And one guy checked into his room. The floor. He sent us a video. The floor is literally crawling with carpet beetles. And he doesn't even set his stuff down, and he videotapes it and goes and finds another hotel. And I told him if he didn't handle this problem, I was going to burn his desk to the ground because I don't want that anywhere.
Not invite him over to your lovely location. Just burn his shit.
Nope.
Okay.
And and initially, like when he was telling us how bad it was and how hot it was, we took pictures of us. It was 78 degrees in the middle of the afternoon with a nice ocean breeze in San Diego, looking into San Diego Bay. And we're like, yeah, maybe we don't send this video because it feels a little mean. He has bugs. So And you'll notice my hair is a little bit shorter because I was near the coast.
It is. Very
It immediately
fancy.
poofed up, and I also spent the week driving with the top down, and I fear. And when I texted Vicky, I'm like, "Hey, honey, would you be a little upset if I maybe she cut it all off right now?" And so I went and got a haircut, and that's how I survived. Anyway,
That's
so.
nice.
Spent the week down there, ate a bunch of seafood, ate at a bunch of lovely places, did post on the Instagram how one guy double parked and blocked me in. He was clearly not from Coronado Island because everybody else there is chill. And Imperial Beach is the same thing. Just nobody's in a hurry. They all like my electric skateboard. And,
Oh, you got another one after the last one? Yeah, I got.
I did.
Reappropriated.
Exactly. I actually, part of my project while I was there, because I had time to kill during the day, is I completely customized it. It's now got underglow, and the grip tape is glow in the dark. And so.
Wow. All right. Well, that's what happens when
went-
you go somewhere that you've got time, but
exactly
not house
went full nerd.
fixing time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Driving back, I took the long way home rather than just, drive up to the outskirts of LA, Riverside, and then take the 15 across. I immediately went kind of direct west, picked up all the curvy sections in the road, posted a little bit of that on the Instagram as well, and drove into Palm Springs for lunch because I'd always wanted to be in Palm Springs. And as I began to descend into Palm Springs after enjoying just perfect weather in San Diego all week, it got a little warm. So when it got to be about 100 degrees, I'm like, okay, we're going to pull over, put the top up, and throw on the air conditioner, to discover that the air conditioner did not work.
Oh, sad trombone. Wah, wah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not a great time
hold
to
on.
put the top up in a black car with no AC. Go ahead.
I have something for that.
Yeah, I closed.
Yes, that's you.
That's amazing.
What moving, it was okay. I did have the top up. I just had the windows down, and it was fine. And then I got into Palm Springs, and I grabbed one of those fresh the recharge your AC things at AutoZone, and put it in. Air conditioner worked normal. I was great. Drove all the way home. Took almost exclusively 2-lane the entire way from San Diego back until about 40 miles outside of Las Vegas, when I finally dumped onto a freeway and then came in, and it was just a wonderful desert drive. Went to a town called Amboy, which up until 2020 had a population of 4. Now they are down to a population of 0.
Oh,
but
no. I thought you were going to say at least 10.
No, it's a tiny little, it is now just a school and a non-existent diner that has a very restored sign. It's on Route 66, and everyone goes there to take pictures. So,
Okay.
Well, that's fun.
yeah, it was just a great day to have. Aside from not having AC while descending into Palm Springs, it was a great day to have a Miata. And I mentioned before that our pool was getting horrible. So we got the pool cleaned off. I got all of the calcium and everything off the tile. Used a lot of CLR, and honestly, a wire
Did it
bristle.
all by hand? Everything?
Well, I only have like this much of the first 2 layers are tile. The rest of it is plaster. And I did that with after trying a variety of methods, I went with the wire wheel on a drill to get, because it had been on there for about 4 years. So it was a little crunchy. So we finally got it filled up last night, fired up the pump, and the main pump container basket immediately sprouted leaks from every corner. And this morning I had to rush and go buy a new retention band to hold the 2 pieces of the filter in place. But our pool is now crystal clear and blue and well balanced and everything.
Yay. And clean. And
that's
so
so nice.
clean. It's so awesome.
Yes. And that is just in time for me to not be able to enjoy it, because I've got to stop eating here in 4 hours, because tomorrow I have surgery.
On.
Oh,
I am getting another hernia mesh. I had one done in 2007, And recently I had one pop up on the other side. And this one should be even less invasive because she said she's going to use robots. So it's robotic surgery.
Oh,
I too
super
welcome
fun.
our robot overlords playing around in junk. So,
Oh no.
So aside from B-class domination, because I
We did
when I
that.
was driving to San Diego, I was texting with a very nervous Chrissy, who was not enjoying it nearly as much as everyone else was.
Oh, I think there was additional nerves everywhere. It was a nerve-wracking Sunday is what it was. So, yes.
So congratulations. I'm going to guess that neither one of you checked out that video I sent you. Said just watch the first 3 minutes.
No.
No,
I
okay.
didn't.
So there's a strong possibility we have new listeners this week. So I want to thank everyone who joined us on the recommendation of Jerry Wayne from the Wrecking Yard. So thank everyone here. But you guys were doing awesome things for 2 weeks. I'm particularly interested in the second half of what Chris put down there.
well, since the last show, what I've been working on is Mazda post race and going through the car, see how it did after we did nothing to it at the track, really. And when I got home, I didn't do much either. Everything was fairly well.
Quadrupled the miles on, or no, not even, because it had 8 miles on it, the engine.
Yeah, now it has like 900 miles on it. So I gave it an oil change because that's, good brake and oil change to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I found a couple bolts that were a little loose doing a once over. So I tightened up the axle nuts, and I actually put new axle nuts on so I could restake them better. And strut to knuckle bolt was a little loose, but that was it. And then I replaced the left rear upper control arm because that had a little bit of play in it. After I did that, it turns out I didn't need to replace that control arm. I just needed to tighten the adjuster bolt down on the lock bolt on the adjusting part. So whatever, it has a new one now. The old one had been in for like 100,000 miles. So like, okay, now it has a new one. It's fine. But the Mazda is now race ready. I even washed it. Like, it is clean and ready to go. So yeah.
Fresh into its about to be completely outclassed in B, or in A rather.
Hey.
Yeah, totally. But it's fine. We'll do casual racing with friends things in the Mazda. That's nice. It's like a retirement for that.
Yes.
Let's see. After that, we've been enjoying lovely weather here, and I was taking the NSX the last few days. This morning,
That's
I woke
real.
up
That's
to
not
Chrissy
sarcasm.
taking the NSX, and I said, "Okay,
Yes.
Chrissy took the NSX today," so I hop in the Porsche. Nice top-down drive to work because it's in the 60s. It's one of those nice times when it's like 60 in the morning and 82 in the afternoon. It's
Yeah.
lovely.
I had the top off, but I had to put the windows up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was exactly
driving-
San Diego weather. Yes, it is top down weather. Good on you. Oh, did we lost Chris?
Goodbye. He probably has not enough bandwidth.
Here
Oh,
we
look,
go.
there he is.
Chris
Dang.
is joining us.
Oh, great. Chris is joining us.
I need to get a new computer.
Yeah, you do.
I keep telling you this.
You've been telling me this when I was using
Right?
the old MacBook, forever. God, our whole podcast goes on that thing.
I keep telling
Yeah.
you.
So anyway, I was driving the Porsche into work today, and the check engine light comes on. Runs fine, but check engine light came on. Read the codes. It's a oxygen sensor getting lazy, apparently. So,
It's
who
tired.
knows how old these
And
original? they might be the
Germans will
original.
not tolerate the lazy.
It's
You must
tired.
replace this oxygen sensor. It's getting lazy.
So 2 new Bosch sensors from Rock Auto are on the way as we speak. They were 1/3 less expensive than FCP or Pelican, so that's what we got.
Valid.
So
I feel
they're
like
on
you
the
could
way.
probably submit a picture of that car saying, kept operational with Rock Auto parts. You'd probably end up on a magnet. Because that's a good looking Porsche.
Yeah.
It's just a
Looks like all the other silver Boxsters out
Yeah,
there,
fair,
pretty much.
pretty
So,
much
yeah.
just a
Uh-huh.
Boxster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's it. We traveled this past weekend and gonna do more of it. But it's nice to have. I'm actually trying to figure out what to do now, because for the last several months it's been prep race cars, fix race cars, go to France, prep race cars, fix race cars, and now
Relax a touch if it's
Oh.
a okay weekend. Yes.
I have 2 race cars that are race ready right now, and I don't have a race for 2 months. What shall I do? I don't know.
No, you have a plan.
I say
I
you know
Involves
people
a tractor.
you know people with race cars. If you wanted to.
No, better than that.
I don't know. It involves getting a
Tractor.
tractor. Tractors are fun. I got to do tractor things.
All
Yep.
right, I like where this is headed.
Just wait.
Yeah.
We all know that Michael K's ears just perked up.
And I just a little while ago, I have to say, I was looking at the Lemons photo gallery for Thompson, and there's 2 pictures that I actually bought because they're so good. So I wanted to shout out to Eric Rude and the great pictures he took. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, Google Chrome is required for screen sharing. I can't tell.
Yeah, I don't know if you can.
I'll send these to Mental. And
Well,
he can
I say,
share his
or
screen,
throw them in the drive, and
because
I'll
these
share
2
them.
are phenomenal.
Throw
of
them in
the
the
Mazda.
drive, and we'll be able to share that from there.
Sounds great. I'll do that.
So, Chrissy,
Not much. No, work is a lot. Yeah, just working a lot, and when I get home, just it's a lot of the scramble. So the normal summer scramble when we have limited time at home between vacations and trying to keep up with housework and that stuff. As everything stopped before race week because we did an engine, we packed, we did race stuff, we came home, we unpacked race stuff, and then I was like, oh, I haven't cleaned the house or made food in a while. So yeah, just feeling like a lot right now, but we'll get in the groove and everything. It's fine. All's well.
I feel the same way about my garage. I have not been able to be in the garage for so long.
Well, and your work schedule is such a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 pictures just uploaded for you, Mental. There you
All
go.
right, so we go quickly to this.
Or do you want to move on, or do you want to?
We can move on.
Absolutely.
This is bad
No,
podcasting.
it's a good part. We're going to move on. You're totally going to move on. It's going to be great.
Oh, except for you're supposed to read this news and notes. News
But
and
you
notes
can-
time!
It
You
is
can go
news and
first,
notes
Chrissy.
time. And
I can go first. Oh nope, I will go first.
Look at that. No.
Nico
solved the problem.
Dimitia from The Drive has a great story about Waymo robo-taxis waking everyone up at 4 a.m. with a honking spree. On June 25th, Waymo opened its robo-taxi doors to anyone in San Francisco. Previously, Waymo's funny-looking self-driving Jaguar I-Paces were only available to people on the wait list. But now anyone in San Francisco can download the app and hail their own robotic chauffeur. Even though it's only been a couple of months, the now widely Waymo cars are aggravating the neighbors by beeping incessantly at 4 o'clock in the morning. But in between rides, many Waymo taxis return to the same parking lot to rest, air quotes, until they wait to be hailed again. That parking lot sits between several apartment buildings, and the taxis will beep at each other throughout the night and they're keeping the neighbors awake. The cars are robotic and they're honking at each other, and there's no one in the cars when it's happening, said Chris Cherry at the San Francisco resident told NBC Bay Area. Since the robotaxis park themselves in the parking lot, they need to find open spaces. Sometimes while trying to autonomously navigate lots, they might be getting too close to bumping into each other, to other parked Waymos, which will send off warning honks when the parking Waymo gets too close, just like a human would if someone were about to back into their car. But because the parking lot is filled with dozens of Waymos running all night, this happens a lot. According to the neighbors, at the 2 times throughout the day when Waymos honk the most are rush hour and 4 a.m. The former is likely due to the frequent usage, but the latter is also just an odd time. Maybe that's when the tired little robot taxis retire for the night. I don't think the neighbors care why, as the consistent beeping continues to keep them awake.
So basically, having a Waymo lot near you is like having a dog.
Just a beeping
Or a
frenzy
kitten.
Yeah.
for no reason.
Because one of them goes, hey, and the other one's, hey, 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 hey. Yeah, they get them. They get
And then one
themselves all
beeps,
wound
and then
up.
everyone's like, oh no, everybody's close to me. Ah, beep, 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 beep. Yep.
I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords as long as they suffer from the same soul-crushing sense of confusion as the rest of us.
I guess. You know what? It's one thing if everybody's confused. It's another thing if everybody, if you're not beeping at everybody and keeping all of your neighbors up. So now we're looking at the fantastic pictures that Eric Rude took. And,
I'm guessing this was was it Sunday when it was threatening to rain?
I don't know. Chris walked away because he decided that it was Saturday. Saturday.
Is he honking at himself? Is he wandering through your house?
He is. He's just bumping into me and started honking. No, he's headed back to his chair very shortly.
Freaking out your cats.
Beep.
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 Beep. Beep. That is, I do believe that is the unmistakable helmet of one Anton.
That is Anton at the end of his first shift of the day when it was starting to rain, but because the crescent is right there too. I thought that was a nice picture.
That is a great shot.
Heck yeah.
And then little fire hydrant salute.
I didn't realize we lifted so much like that. So this is we should tell people that are listening to a podcast.
So this is
what we're looking
picture
at.
From it's turn 4, which is the tight right hand hairpin, and this shot is of the Mazda right rear quarter view, and it is lifted its right rear wheel solidly a couple inches off the ground.
Yes.
I had no idea.
That giant rear sway bar doing its thing.
Our butt looked like that. I had no idea. I guess I never saw it from the back, so there's that.
Right. No, it's usually that's such a tight turn too. Yeah. It's tight off camber. That's when it's going to lift. So
absolutely, cool. That's the view most people get of it over a weekend.
That's true.
All right. So also in news on this one, all right, and this is where I try to read and select my screen.
Or just read. It's fine.
Or just read. Hey, everybody, check it out. Adam Kalmowitz from Jalopnik is giving us what is honestly scary as crap story of a Jeep that sent 2 babies in a highway. And if you were looking at this on the screen, you can literally see
that's terrible.
It is 2 children, 2 little tiny little babies that were apparently ejected. Now, obviously, we're not going to show this if they're not fine. They are okay, but this is going to put your heart in your throat a little bit when you look at the link on the show notes. So they were out in the middle of a Texas highway. They were ejected from a Jeep Wrangler that had flipped over several times in an accident over the weekend. Now, the Jeep crashed into another vehicle on Interstate 10 in Freeport, Texas on August 11th. And this video was captured by a passerby. You see just 2 babies walking around in the middle of the highway, and they're wearing nothing but diapers. Adults literally in the photo can be seen rushing to the children. It is not clear if the 2 children were in car seats at the time of the crash, according to the New York Post, but all the while you literally see the Wrangler right there in the background on its roof. So good on car seats. And I'll make this joke since the kids are fine. It's proof that in fact most children are made of Nerf. That is.
There were so many comments about this story that basically said that. They're like, "Oh, kids bounce, it's fine."
So
it was a funny news week. This was funny.
Yeah,
funny if children all over the highway is not.
It's
normally
okay
funny.
because they're fine.
It is okay only because the kids are fine. Otherwise, it's
traumatized maybe, but they're not bleeding, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's Texas. You find kids in the highway all the time.
They're probably young enough that they're like, I don't really know what just happened, but all right, whatever.
Yeah.
That was fun. Whee!
Yeah.
Can we do that again? Where are my Cheerios? Cheerios. And whoever was driving that is going, great. This is the time. The one time of like the last 19 times that I just left them in the diapers instead of actually getting them dressed.
Oh yeah, the wife is just like, really? You didn't put any clothes on them? Really? Really?
Yes, exactly. Oh, well. All right.
Okay. All right.
Hey, are you looking for a reasonably priced track-ready car?
I'm not, but I know
I feel like of any podcast, our audience is most likely.
Right. So we found this 2003 Nissan 350Z that looks like a pretty good deal. Now, from the ad, it starts off with, the car has more potential. posted a 211.8 at VIR, 123.5 at Summit Point, Hallett 129, Harris Hill 132.
Whoa, 129 at Hallett. Now that one I have a reference for, and that is cooking.
Yeah. Yeah. From March 2020 to present, did 2 practice weekends, 1 race at Hallett, and 2 more practice weekends since. Only needs an alignment to compete. And this has a massive list of spares. If you look down in the ad, there's so many parts that come with this thing. If you have to click on full description, and that's what I was getting at.
Oh my gosh!
They got the premium membership, and they have 25 pictures. It shows how all the cage work, but like, look at all the parts that come with this thing. Look at all the work that's been done to it.
It's 26 separate items, and half of them have like A, B, C, all the way down to K after that. Man,
yeah, it's got like 8 wheels and extra, all kinds of extra parts that come with this thing. Just boxes and boxes of brake pads, and yeah, that seems like a nice fair.
And how much?
It's fair price for $16,000 if you wanted to run some NASA GT4 stuff or things like that. This seems like a great way to go.
Yes, that is a
where?
Yeah. Flagerville, Texas.
Thank you.
Yep.
You keep scrolling through too quickly, so I can't see it.
I apologize.
That's okay.
All right.
So great. That's fun.
All kinds of good stuff on Racing Junk. And then when you get the pro membership, you get to actually put lots of pictures and people like it.
Yes.
That's great.
Like us.
Okay, upcoming races time!
Champ Car is doing a True 24 at VIR this weekend. That should be a good time if the weather holds up. 66 cars, depending on the track at VIR, is plenty of room, probably. Of that, 25 are BMWs. 12 Miatas.
Which is at least less than half. So they're getting better.
The other half are.
The other 6 Hondas, 7 Porsches, 2010 Crown Vic, which that's got to be one of the last ones. And lots of Mustangs and Corvettes.
Battle Scarred guys. If it's VIR, it might be one of the.
I didn't look at the name.
Fair enough.
To tell you the truth.
Yeah.
But
well,
there were
good for them.
A ton of Mustangs and Corvettes, so that is like the other half of the field.
Yeah.
Well, go Crown Vic.
Right?
Yep.
That was the only thing that was interesting. They're all like normal and boring.
Yes. Now, to my failure. We knew that Lemons did their Hell on Wheels rally, and if you weren't watching that, of course, all of your regular folks were there. Fort Kickass showed up, XC90s kids, and Team Mustang was my particular favorite. They found a 4-seater handmade frame Volkswagen thing powered by a Corvair. You drove it from the front seat, but the passenger behind you had to operate the gear shift to get it through the gears as you were driving. It was, and it was averaging 1 fan belt a day that it would throw.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. That's so much.
Yes. So there was a mini Marcos in there. The XC90 kids had a Honda, and they were dressed as raccoons, and they kept trying to break into a Tesla truck that was there. There were some utterly amazing
tricky fingers.
Well, because the dumpsters, raccoons keep trying to break into Tesla trucks because they think there's dumpsters and there's lunch in the back of them because they look like dumpsters.
They probably have lunch in them.
So, I know that they got an award. I think they may have gotten the affluency of idiocy. For that one, which is the top prize, for staying in costume the whole weekend. It was pretty impressive. So check out #LemonsRally on your Instagram, and the rally game has gotten strong. Like this year, like there are people that show up maybe and still drive it, but I feel like everyone that's showing up to these Lemons rallies, they are showing up in costume, ready to go. Multiple changes throughout the day. They've got themes. They're hitting all the checkpoints. It is definitely, if you want to not get into a race car, but you still want to do some dumb car stuff, man, get yourself to a Lemons rally.
Yeah.
Man.
Rallies are good times.
They really are.
Definitely a good time.
Mm-hmm.
You guys would know. Cool. It's listener feedback time!
Hey, on the YouTubes, Moot Point said, quote, "It was great racing with y'all last weekend." And he means y'all. "We are super stoked for the Class C win. We've been fighting for that win for a long time now. We pushed hard the whole weekend, running a 2-stop on Saturday and 1-stop on Sunday. While we ran away with C finishing 25 laps ahead of the second place, we are still 20 laps behind the B. So they've got some work to do. But, you know, I mean, who was running B? It's not even like that was, oh, wait, no, sorry. Yeah. I did have a good time running with Chrissy after the red flag. There was about a dozen laps where we were racing neck and neck, but I needed your big block power because you would walk away on the straight. More on that in just a minute. Foreshadowing." He also added, "I was almost involved in the red flag incident, but I saw a yellow flag at 11B and drove through the crash, then stopped at the start finish flag station, probably missing that crash by 10 seconds and some undoubtedly pretty slick wheel work." Because I saw the video of that in real time. That was harrowing.
Quite. I was about 4 seconds, maybe not even, behind it. So, yep, I was there. Oh, and Carlton said, "I was so hyped to see Mr. H Motorsports get IOE. They embody the spirit of lemons, and they were at the top of the class with such a slow, fast lap. Very impressive." And Michael K said, "The cliffhanger right before I leave for 19 days of intermittent cell phone coverage and 13 days of awesome roads. Luckily, I know how it ends, and I can just make up the middle part in my head traversing the 1,200 miles of nothing that is North Dakota and Eastern Montana." I think he's referring to the only half of the show that was posted initially because Chris's computer is dumb.
Yep.
It's just tired.
And he's right. Dumb. There is nothing in North Dakota and Eastern Montana. Actually, well, I will say, in Eastern Montana has those painted rocks areas that are actually near the highway that are pretty cool, but that's about it. There's nothing in Eastern Montana.
Yeah, you've got part of the Badlands in the southern part of North Dakota or the northern part of South Dakota. And
it's you can see it from driving by the highway. Like, oh, okay, that's it. Great, thanks. And Al said the Infinity theme that you couldn't figure out was just a rebadged Nissan theme that cost more.
Which is very
Touché,
funny.
Al. Touché.
But
yes.
In listening to your description of the theme, it was actually from a film that Chrissy has not seen called They Live. Now, it's a John Carpenter masterpiece starring, Roddy Piper and Keith David.
You can't see my face because you can see two of Chris's face, but it's fine. You can imagine what my face is saying.
Oh, great. Another movie I didn't care about. Whatevs.
Well, yeah, that's an appropriate theme. If not everybody gets it, that's okay. Yes. As long as somebody does.
And it delivered us the one of the great macho lines put into cinema of Rowdy Piper walking in with a shotgun, and he says, "I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I am all out of bubble gum."
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for clarifying that. You know who else is all out of bubble gum?
I was going to say, you know who else is here to kick ass, but yeah.
Oh, I like that one better. That one's good.
Or, you know what definitely kicks ass is her cookies.
Totes.
Mm-hmm. Everyone knows that.
Yep, she's here to make the world a better place with cookies.
Yeah.
Yep.
All good.
Yeah.
Hi, Carol.
Yes. Hello. I've been away for 2 weeks. Hello. I'll say Carol, but no one knows Carol. Everybody knows Chrissy's mom. Hello, Chrissy's mom.
That's true. That's true. Okay, it's main topic time.
Yes. This thing that you just typed, whoever typed this, I feel like
did.
That's
yes. Chrissy.
Yes. Okay. So we're talking about the Mazda 3. We've been threatening to talk about this for the last couple weeks. We've been talking about it with ourselves. Might have given it away here and there about why we think we should talk about it. Also, people that have Mazda 3s either already prepped and have raced and want to figure out why ours is better. We decided we should probably tell you why, what we've done to it and why it's great. Quick backstory. Okay. Ahead.
Lots of people say, "Hey, I'm looking to get into lemons. What's a good, reliable chassis that has lots of parts and I can upgrade later?"
And now that we won, I don't care if you know some of our secrets. So not all of them, because we'll keep some of them to ourselves. But for the most part, our secrets they start with a daily driver. So I bought this car in 2007 with probably about 25 miles on it, I think. And I bought it. It's a 2. It was a 2.3. It's not touring. It's a touring, I think.
Yeah. It's a
And
3S touring originally.
right, 3S, a hatch. So it's a hatch, which Mental knows all about, is not the same body parts or many parts as the sedan. So you'll need to know if you're going to have a hatch or a sedan, you need to know what you have, and that matters to some things. I feel like you need to push the button that is the me being sad try mom. Anyway.
Yeah, I closed.
It's so good. I love it. Anyway, so I bought this car brand new. I dailied it for many, many years, put many, many miles on it. And anytime something went bad, we got upgraded parts. And so that's why when we put it on track recently, it was better than we planned because it was fairly prepped when it was a street car. My favorite part of the car is the Coney springs and Eibach sport lines that we put on. I don't even know what year. But the
car only had 70,000 miles on it when we did, to give you a rough idea. Now it
right,
has
but
260, almost 263.
So when we bought them and put them on there, we bought them through Tire Rack, and there was a warranty on them, a lifetime-ish, I suppose,
Yeah.
lifetime warranty.
Coney offers a lifetime warranty on their shocks to the original purchaser if you can prove it with a valid current registration for your street car.
Fortunately, I have been able to do that even when it is a race car. I hope no Tire Rack employees listen to this podcast.
It's still you're not
Coney,
gaming
not
the
Tire
system.
Rack.
That is
I'm sorry.
Viable, daily, on the street, insured, inspected. That's a car. It's a real car.
It's a
more
real
of a car than my truck because it's got license plates and my truck doesn't.
It's fine. Anyway, that's my favorite part. We've gone through 3 warranties because they've rusted out, broken. One goes bad. I tell them, hey, I need 2 because the other one's going to go. And they're like, okay. And then they just give it to me. Okay. Anyway, that's a backstory. Chris is going to go into some of the different issues, things that we've upgraded of why it's great. Opportunities and why it's great.
Yeah, that one owner high mileage car has we've been really happy with it. It's been nice. So
I remember,
let's talk about it.
Yeah, in 2007, I also had a Mazda 3, but I got the sedan and I got the base model entry level one. Didn't even have cruise control, and I traded it in on a dirt bike.
Our cruise control still works.
Good story.
Yeah,
we use it on the track. No, we don't. I'm just kidding.
No, I've tempted on a yellow flag sometimes just to set.
I think I may have tried it at New Hampshire last year just to see if I could.
Should work.
Yeah, it should. All right, let's talk all about the Mazda 3. And we're gonna talk about the different years, the different things that changes that they made, and all the different upgrade paths that there are, because these cars are like Legos, and they're Legos with a lot of other cars. So, and that's where we're going to start. This car is based on the Ford C1 chassis. This chassis eventually would underpin the European Ford Focus, the Mazda 3, the Mazda 5, the Mazda CX-7, and the Volvo V50, S40, and C30, and C70. So those cars all share some critically important parts, but then other parts they don't share at all. Like they all have different engines. But random things like control arms are the same. Other things that you'd think would be the same are not. But it does let you have a lot of choices in various parts that you're going to have. So we're going to focus on the first generation Mazda 3, which was produced from 04 to 10, or 04 to 09, sorry, 04 to 9. But the second generation 3, which was 10 through like 14, I think, is very, very similar. So a lot of these things are going to apply to the second generation as well. Like a lot of the chassis parts are literally the same. The engines are the same basically. So most of this applies to second generation, but we're primarily looking at the first generation because those are the cheap ones. Here's a key. Avoid the 04 and 05 models. Just don't. They made some pretty critical changes for 06 that allow you to do upgrades. They changed the engine management software. They changed the way the wheel speeds, the speed sensor is, so you cannot upgrade the transmission if you have one of the earlier cars. So just avoid the 04, 05 cars at all costs. Stick to the 06 through 09 versions. That's the best part. And from there isn't really much in the way of changes. They changed the body a little bit in 07 and different colors and stuff, but that's it. Just stick with 06 to 09. So we'll start with the chassis. This is a four-wheel independent suspension. It handles pretty nicely. It works pretty well. And there's not a whole lot that you need to do to it. Initially, the stock suspension is a little soft and floaty, as you'd expect in a street car, and a little tall. But there's lots of upgrades available for the suspension, and all kinds of different aftermarket shocks and coilovers, and anything from a Speed 3 will fit on the chassis, and that's a really nice thing that you can have start playing Legos with. Is Speed 3 parts pretty much bolt right on, which is
anything.
Great. Almost. Our car has a lot more. I just start ordering Speed 3 parts for it, and they all seem to fit. Like all the suspension's the same, the steering knuckles are the same, the brakes and the speed are bigger. Sway bars are bigger. So that's your best upgrades for the chassis. First off is a big rear sway bar. The Speed 3 stock sway bar is a nice upgrade, but if you can find an aftermarket one, that's even better. And this also applies to the Volvos and things. The Speed 3 has the best of the rear of the sway bar options. So stick with the Speed 3.
Naturally.
And that's about all you need to do to the chassis. The front control arms are wear items, essentially. They have a rubber bushing at the back and a ball joint, and they're really easy to replace. It's 3 bolts bolted to the car and 1 pinch bolt at the knuckle. So you just end up replacing those every couple of races. It's easy. Everything else has been pretty durable. You're going to need to replace the sway bar end links because those wear out originally. But the front ones you get from a BMW 7 Series, like a E39 7 Series. They're a little beefier and they're the same dimensions. So use that. The rear, you'll need to use the Speed 3 sway bar end links when using the Speed 3 rear bar because it's a different size. That's about it. The chassis is really simple and durable and works really well. So yeah, let's keep going. How about brakes? This car has fantastic brakes. Fantastic brakes. And the
you
stock
can
brakes
stop
are okay.
on a dime.
And
yeah, stock brakes are okay,
change.
but the upgrades are better. Expect change? Yes, on a dime.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah, seriously, put this thing on a dime. I remember the first time, because everyone had driven it. I just had not had a chance to drive it. And it was New Hampshire. And you're on the radio telling me, because I'm easing into turn 1 and I'm still out braking everybody. And then I would just, ease into the brakes, bring it in. And you kept saying, stop doing that. I want you to engage the ABS. And so finally I had someone who, they had a high horsepower car and we were going down and, they're giving me the nervous, when you going to brake? I'm not. And then finally they gave up and, like in the movie, they hit the brakes. Yeah. It's a little warm in here. I might adjust the heat down a little. And now I'm going to brake. And the ABS kicked in and I turned in because I just outbraked everything. And I knew that there was nothing behind me. That is it. I expected to be good brakes because Chris builds good cars. I did not expect that. Those are FU brakes. Those are F everybody brakes. Yeah, they are. They're amazing.
We use on the front Speed 3 brakes, and it literally bolts on. Just go buy the Mazda Speed parts. The calipers are enormous. The rotors are enormous. And it all bolts together. This is one of those things also that you can't do if you have an earlier car. It's a lot harder. So that's another reason to buy the 06 and newer. So that's the front. Buy the Speed 3 brakes. The Raybestos ST43 or 45 pads that we get usually last us like 4 to 5 races. It's amazing because the brakes are so big that they don't ever get all that hot and doesn't use them up too fast. So it works really well. The calipers are NLA new, but you can still get them remanned or used, and rebuild kits are still out there to get for them. So it's not too bad. And the ABS works again really well. Leave it alone. You can't disable it, because if you do, you're going to lose your vehicle speed sensor, which means the engine's not going to be real happy and needs that vehicle speed sensor. And the speed sensor in these cars is the ABS wheel sensor. So leave it alone. But there's no reason to remove it. It works really well. You don't get that ice mode that some newer cars have, where as soon as one wheel locks up, it just kind of takes all your braking away. Nope, doesn't do that at all. And he gets you rotors that are almost 13 inches in diameter on the front, and huge calipers.
A pizza. It's huge. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's a pizza.
It is.
Yeah, it's fantastic. In the rear, the Mazda 5 van has larger diameter rotors, but uses the same calipers as the 3. So all you need to do is get the caliper brackets from a 5 that spaces the caliper out further on the rotor, and then use the Mazda 5 rotors and pads, and you have larger brakes in the back too for super cheap, because no one's asking for Mazda 5 rear brake caliper brackets in a junkyard. So just get those. They work great. And so that with those upgrades, you have massive brakes that last forever. There's never ever been any fade at all, and we outbrake everybody, which is really nice to be able to do. I'm trying to look up the rotor size in the rear on this, but it's big is what it comes down to. Let's see. Here's centric. Rear rotors are 11.89, so almost 12-inch rear rotors too. So that's great. Just run stock master cylinder is fine, even with the larger brakes. So that's the same as on the Speed. Just run RBF 600 or some kind of higher temp fluid, and you're fine. You don't even need ducting. Nothing's ever overheated. The pads last forever. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Yep. All right. Let's talk about engine options, because you have options, and this is getting a little tricky, and this is really delving into the parts bin nature of this car. So this car came with a Mazda L series engine. If it's a base model, it had the 2-liter. If it's the S on any of the hatches, it has a 2.3 liter. This engine was part of a larger platform, or larger sharing agreement between Ford and Mazda, because Ford and Mazda were in bed together for a long time, as most of you know, and they had an agreement where Mazda, at least at this time, Mazda would design all of the 4-cylinder engines for the partnership. Ford would do all the V6s. So any 4-cylinder Ford of this era, it's a Mazda engine. Any V6 Mazda of this era, it's a Ford Duratec. So that helps us, because this engine is still being produced today by Ford. You may have heard of it. It's called the EcoBoost in a lot of things. Any of the 4-cylinder ones, it's all still based on the Mazda L series engine. So this one is the L5VE that we upgraded to, which is a 2.5 liter. This 2.5 liter was put in pretty much everything Ford made during the 2000s. The Fusion, the Escape, the Milan, the Mariner, the you name it, the Focus, that's all using this version of the engine, like even other stuff you wouldn't expect. So this engine also in 2.5 liter form was in the second generation Mazda 3 and was in the Mazda 6, second generation Mazda 6 as well for the 2.5. And that's the one you want, is the 2.5. Forget everything else. Just go, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go straight to the 2.5. And the reason is they're everywhere. They are littering junkyards because they put them in so many things. They make more power than the 2.3, and they're fundamentally a better design than the 2.3. The ports on the cylinder head are massive. They flow so well. The block is built with a really solid girdle holding the whole thing together. The rods are super beefy. It's a great engine, and it works really well. It makes 175 horsepower stock and everything else. And if you really want more, cams open it right up. The cams are what's holding it back. We don't have cams. We just have intake header exhaust because intake we put on the car when the car had I think about 80,000 miles, and I hit a deer and it destroyed the stock airbox. So we put an AEM intake on it. All that back in the day. And
I can look this up myself because the temptation is always forced induction. But the Mazda Speed 3 came with a turbo.
It did, but that was also the Speed was a direct injected motor, and you need to use the entire upper end setup of the Speed 3 and the wiring, and you don't want to do any of that because that's a lot of work, and that just means you're going to burn your gas more and have more problems because the Speed 3 was not known for being really reliable because of the turbo stuff. The engine itself was okay, but not the turbo stuff.
And I was trying to figure out what the horsepower was on the turbo versus the Ford.
The Speed was like 270. It was a lot.
Okay. All right.
Speed made a lot of power. So with 175 stock, we put a header on it because it has a close coupled cat on the stock exhaust manifold. We left that on for a few races. It was getting really hot, but it never gave us any problems. It was just really hot, and we thought, we should probably replace that. So we did, and that has led to other problems later on that we'll talk about. So that, and we also got a tune for it, and I think we're probably making about 190 horsepower now, which is enough. So we'll keep going with the engine here. Here's how to do this swap. You have to treat the 2.5 like a long block swap. Everything around the long block has to be changed. This includes most specifically the timing cover. It's a timing chain motor, and the timing cover that bolts on that entire end of the motor is where the passenger side motor mount is. And there are different shapes and heights on the different motors, so you need to use the timing cover that matches your chassis.
It don't fit if you don't change it.
It
all is just going to barely fit anyway.
Yep. The oil pan can fit out of a whole bunch of different cars as long as you don't keep the stock air conditioning in the car, because originally the air conditioner compressor was mounted in the oil pan. It bolted to the oil pan. If you're not using that, you can use the oil pan off pretty much anything, and it'll be okay.
Now is when Chrissy points to her left shoulder and says, "Hey, check out our awesome oil pan baffle video here."
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. Let's see what else you need to change.
Hold on. I've got something for this.
Now you know. Do-do-do-do.
Or you know. Yep. Good.
You're the best.
You need to change both intake and exhaust manifold to fit the car. And I'll talk about the intake manifold more in a bit. Well, I'll just do it right now. Intake manifold.
Okay.
The stock intake manifold will physically bolt to the engine, but the ports on the 2.5 are so big that it won't seal properly with the 2.3 manifold. So you can either get an adapter plate that I have an extra one of that I took off the car. If anyone needs one, let me know. It allows you to bolt the 2.3 manifold to the 2.5 without problems, or get the intake manifold from a second generation Mazda 3 2.5 or CX7, either one of those. The non-turbo 2.5 liter, it will bolt right up to the car. The only modification you have to make is a bracket for the variable intake runner vacuum solenoids, and that's it. Otherwise, bolts right on. Intake manifold and throttle body, and that's the best flowing one of all the ones for that. You cannot use the Ford one. It doesn't have the right plugs.
We know that.
You also going to need the you are also going to need the 2.5 liter fuel injectors. They are a larger flow than the 2.3 liter, and by using the 2.5 injectors, you do not need to do anything to the ECU. The mapping is changed or the mapping is the same, but the flow of the larger injectors is enough to cover the difference between the 2.3 and the 2.5. The best of the 2.5 fuel injectors came in the 2010 to 2014-ish, that generation of Mazda 6. They had, I think, 8 nozzle holes in the injectors instead of 4, so the fuel atomizes a little bit better. So those are the best injectors. You need to change the thermostat outlet, the water outlet. So not the thermostat outlet. Thermostat outlet follows the car, so you do need to change that. You need to change the water outlet on the back of the cylinder head to match the car too. And you need to change the valve cover because there's a variable valve timing solenoid that sticks up through it, and also the way the coils mount, the coil on plugs mount to the valve cover, and they're different between all the different motors. So, like I said, consider it a long block swap, and you'll be all right. There are 2 different variable valve timing solenoids. One has a square plug, one's an oval plug. These originally had the ones with a square plug, and if you have a donor motor 2.5 with a square plug, it'll bolt right in, no problem with the 2.3 valve cover. If you get one with the oval plug, you're going to need a new plug for your wiring harness, and you're also going to need to change the gasket in the valve cover from one that had that VCT solenoid over. So we just did that. You cannot change the solenoid. It's a different bolt pattern on the cylinder head. You have to change the donut in the valve cover. You keep your stock wiring harness, bolt it right up. You keep your stock accessories, your alternator, starter, etc. The water pumps are all the same.
Heater and air conditioner.
Yep. The water pumps are all the same. Don't have to change that, but the accessory drive will match your chassis. So whatever the pulleys that you had for that, use your chassis pulley. You're also going to need to use your chassis crank pulley because the Mazda has a different number of teeth and a different spacing on the pulley than the Ford one does. So, and this is key. The timing setup of this motor is weird, and I don't really like it. I'm used to engines that have a crank pulley with a keyway, and you put a Woodruff key in it, and your pulley goes on, and that's great.
The way God intended.
These engines do not have a keyed crank pulley. You have to line the timing up between the crank and the cams with a series of tools, and then bolt the crank pulley on with a very special $5, very thin diamond dust encrusted washer that goes between the crank pulley and the timing chain gear on the crank. And then using a one-time only bolt, the crank bolt, you tighten it to 90 degrees, and then you go you tighten it to 90 foot-pounds, and then you go another 90 degrees to get the appropriate amount of stretch in.
Holy crap, and this thing's $20.
The washers, no, that's a whole kit you're looking at. I bought the washers, I think, for $6 or $7 each.
I honestly thought
extras.
You were saying diamond encrusted to just make fun of how expensive they were.
No.
No. In
That's
fact, they actually do have diamonds encrusted on them. It listed under the Ford genuine parts. That is hilarious.
Yep. And it's that way to have it. It's for grip between the crank pulley and the crank. So if you're doing the swap, you need, essentially, it's a long block swap with all your stuff moved over. Plus you're going to need a new crank pulley bolt. You're going to need a new diamond washer. You're going to need the tools to do the swap, which I got them from Massive Speed, I think is the shop I got them from. And it's essentially a special piece of bar stock. It's a little different that locks into the cams. It just slides into the end of the cams and holds them in place. And a bolt of very certain length that goes in the side of the block that will hold against the crankshaft to keep it from moving. And then you put a bolt through your timing pulley, your crank pulley, into your timing cover, and that puts the pulley in the right spot. And with your cams and crank all at the right spot, then you can actually do this procedure to tighten it all together. But everything has to be locked down in its correct position in order to put the crank pulley on and tighten it. This is a weird thing that it does, that this engine has. I don't particularly like it, but that's what you need to know about it. Yep. And that's about it for the engine. You use your stock wiring harness. I guess I said stock accessories.
That's about it. It's no problem, right?
Stock ECU. Well, none of it's hard. None of it is hard.
It's just a lot of particular parts, though.
Yeah, and you have to. If you know the right parts, it's great. And because of it, you can use engines that were made. These 2.5s were made starting in 2010, and Ford didn't stop making them until like 2022. So the engine that we had in this car before that we put in when it had 168,000 was from a 2012 Ford Fusion. We drove it for almost 100,000 miles. 10,000 of those were race miles. And except for the number one rod journal that got cooked, their entire rest of the motor looked perfect. There was no wear on the bearings. There was no discoloration in the motor. Everything looked spectacular. You could still see the factory cross hatching on the cylinders. So it was holding up well. It wasn't burning any oil. I don't know why that failed. But after 10,000 race miles and 100,000 miles, like, okay, fine. I'm not going to complain about it too much. It's okay.
It worked. It did its job. It lived a good life.
It did its job. The engine that we just put in was from a 2018 Ford Escape. Who knew a 2018 Ford Escape engine would fit into 2007 miles?
Not many people would know that.
And
No,
now,
with those tricks.
Now you know. Do-do-do-do.
Or you know. Really the key is it's a long block swap. Use your stock wiring with the 2.5 injectors. Do the crank pulley and stock mounts for the car. Everything's stock for the car, basically. Yep. And that gets you a bunch more power and a better motor that's newer and better design. And
as you have highlighted, a lot more junkyard options. Because we still will preach the gospel of Honda because they're also like Legos, and there's a bunch of those in the junkyards. But you're not finding any D16 single cams anymore. You're not finding. You're finding a lot of the 2.4,
Accord K motors, yeah.
Yeah, and Honda isn't necessarily the only option. And I know our Subaru brethren will say Subarus are all kinds of swappable too, but out here in Las Vegas, we don't have Subarus. There's no need for them.
And they
so
break.
Aside from the WRXs, they're not popular and they do pop. But I know that I have a stack of Ford Escapes out here. I know that I've got a stack of Ford Fusions. I could walk to the junkyard and swing a irreplaceable CRX fender and hit 4 of them.
The motors that we just got were $575 each plus a core and tax. So we were into them for $675 each by the time we're done. And these motors have 7 miles on them.
And that was a high-end junkyard.
They look like it.
They pulled that motor for you and had it waiting when you showed up. Yeah.
But other junkyards that were closer to me had them like, 70,000 mile motor for like $260. Like, they're cheap and they're everywhere. Yeah, so that's why.
Which it's
really nice to do.
And that may not be if you're building one of these or you're looking for the car to go racing with, go with his first option of having the one pulled from a yard where they can give you the history of it. But if it goes wrong at the track, oh crap, where's the nearest pick and pull? Yeah. We ventilated our block.
That's the problem because you're not going to be able to do the swap very well at the track because you have to swap everything over.
Not a swap. But if you have one of these motors in there and you ventilate the block and you need to replace that motor.
Yeah. What we're going to do
go home and then do it over a long time. You will not do this at the track.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I misunderstood the objection.
Prepped.
Got it. All right.
It takes too long to swap everything over from one engine to the other as part of a long block swap.
If both of us were working the whole time.
Yeah. The way to do it is to get the 2.5, get another or a bad version of the engine that's in your car, or go to the junkyard and strip all those extra parts off. And then you can make it at home and have it ready, but it is not the kind of thing you're going to swap at the junkyard.
All right.
Or swap at the track is what you're saying. You will not swap it at the track.
Yes, at the track.
But I will say, hopefully I won't be corrected on this one, but because they made it until 2022, every flaps is going to have all the little nitnoid bits that you might need for this.
Yeah, the timing cover and the crank puller, are going to be the hard things to get to fit your car. So
obviously that's the thing you carry spares of.
Timing cover you don't just go get anywhere. It's I think Mazda still sells them for a few $100, or really it's a junkyard thing. Just get them at the junkyard. They're cheap and easy. All right, transmission options. You have essentially 3 different options for transmission. The stock transmission is a Mazda GM5R, I think it's what it's called. It's a 5-speed. It's fine. It's not especially robust, but it's okay because it was originally designed for cars with lower power than this. You're basically at its maximum limit of power now. Leave it in there if that's what you have. It's totally fine. The 5 and any Mazda 3 transmission from 06 through like 14 will all bolt in. This is, again, another reason don't get the 04, 05. The transmissions are different in the way they attach. So the thing that's different about this, the next upgrade you can do that I don't recommend you do is a 6-speed from a 2010 to 2014 Mazda 3 2.5 liter. It will literally bolt in. It uses the same axles, the same shift cables, the same everything. It just bolts right in one for one. Same clutch, you name it. Those are hen's teeth and impossible to find. And when you do find them, they're very expensive. I have one in the garage because we had one in for a long time, because when I bought it, they weren't quite hen's teeth that they are now. So if you really want one, let me know, because I'd like to get it out of the garage. That'd be great. It worked fine when we pulled it out.
Or just don't do that because we're telling you that don't do that.
Yeah, you don't need it. The gear ratios are a little bit better, but not enough to worry about it. The other option is the transmission from the Speed 3. That's what we have now. These things are super cheap in junkyards because they don't blow up. And the other stuff around them do, because people crash their Speed 3s or the engine blows or things like that, and they end up in junkyards. This is a very big, very heavy, very beefy ASEAN 6-speed. This was also used in the Nissan Maximas when they had a 6-speed manual. So it is designed for cars that make 270 to 300 horsepower. And we're putting in a car that makes 190. So it is going to be durable and hold up. It bolts into the car. Just like everything else. You just have to use this stuff for the chassis. So use the Speed 3 bracket on the transmission with your stock mount, and you need the Speed 3 shift cables. That is the other difference. You also need essentially, if you're doing the Speed 3, you need all the Speed 3 stuff. Axles, shift cables, clutch, flywheel, slave cylinder. All the things that are attached to the transmission all have to be Speed 3. If you're doing the 2010 6-speed, you can use your stock stuff. It'll all just work. The Speed 3 requires all those other things, but the Speed 3 transmissions are cheap. I think we paid $350 for ours with 70,000 miles on it. So, and the other fun part about the Speed 3 transmission is that they come stock with a helical limited slip differential, which works very well. It's almost unobtrusive, but we never spin a wheel. Going up the hill in New Hampshire, it just goes right up the hill in the rain. No problem. So for the transmission, essentially leave it stock or go Speed 3. Unless you have an 04, 05, and then you have no choice. You have to leave it stock.
Which even just going Speed 3, it's leaving it stock. You know, you're not having to custom fabricate anything. In fact,
we're just playing OEM Legos.
Yeah. In any of this build, knowing that you are capable, was there anything you had to fabricate?
No. Just using the stock parts from the right bits. Everything bolts together. That's why our 07 economy car chassis has a 2018 small SUV engine from a different manufacturer, a different rear brakes
shoehorned into an engine bay.
The Speed 3 transmission is big and heavy, and it is very difficult to get in and out without the engine. And even with the engine, it's tight getting it in
As
and
you
out.
as you might have seen the pictures of the time lapse that I put taking in and out. That's why it was one of those down, down, down a little bit. Nope, nope, hitting on this side. Nope, hitting on the front. Nope, hitting everywhere else because we played that back and forth game. Didn't we have to do a
Yep.
little bit of splicing of wiring one of the sensors on top? Or is that an us problem?
Only because we went to the 2018 motor that had the oval variable cam timing sensor in it. We needed to get the different plug for that sensor, and that's it. It's 2 wires.
Yes, I was just got it. I wasn't sure. Yes, but that's minimal.
The engine was basically unchanged from 2010 through 2016. 2017 and up had some very minor changes, not a big deal, but you would need to change that plug on the VCT sensor, and therefore the plug, the donut, and the valve cover, all that stuff that has to do with the VCT sensor. That's on the engine. All right, so we've gone through chassis, brakes, engine, transmission, wheels and tires. These cars fit big wheels and tires. We initially ran Mazda RX-8 wheels because Mazda has basically the same bolt pattern and wheel offset for every car they make of the era. The RX-8 wheels are 18 by 8 and are lightweight and they're strong. They're a great choice, except 18-inch tires are a little more expensive. And you can really only fit a 225 40/18 on it. Otherwise, the car will fit barely 17 by 9s, 245 40/17s. You do need a pretty high offset, though. You need like a 48 offset on that. So you'll see, and it'll fit. We usually order stuff for a Mazda RX-8 and just check the part number, check the exact specs on it. But with a high offset 17 by 9, it will fit just barely. You will probably want to roll the fender lips, both front and back. And you can't go to a 235/45 that's a little taller, and that will hit the fenders. So 245/40 is where you want to be. Works great. But the RX-8 wheels are another just inexpensive, readily available option. But really, the wheels for NC Miatas also will fit. Some of the autocross people use 17 by 9s in the NC. That works out well too.
Which is the only 5-lug Miata.
Yep, exactly. But it's really nice to be able to fit a big tire, and that we get like 3 weekends out of a set of Hancooks because they're not overly stressed, which is great. Yep. So let's go on to the suspension setup. Springs and shocks are your choice. We already talked about the big sway bar, but for alignment, we tried a bunch of things and did it with tested at Thompson with tire pyrometers, and we ended up at about 2.25 to 2.5 degrees of front camber. That's more than it gives you stock, and there's 0 camber adjustability stock. So what we did is slotted the bolt holes in the strut towers in the front just a little bit, and it makes it so you can get that much camber. So if you can get it in that 2.25 to 2.5 range, you'll be fine. We usually end up wearing the inside of our front tires before we wear the outsides down. So that's all the camber you need. In the rear, you can buy some Moog adjustable control arms, the upper control arm. And because that part was shared with all kinds of other cars, they're readily available and cheap. I just bought 2. I think they were $50 each from Rock Auto. And those have a threaded outer bushing, so you can thread that in or out to get the camber you need. We usually end up with about the same camber front and rear. It could probably use a little bit more in the back than we have right now, but it's a nice balance. For toe, we usually end up running about 0 toe in the rear, which gives a car a little bit of it will lift off oversteer if you do it, but it's normally nice and predictable with understeer. Front, we usually run a little toe out, up to 1/8 of toe out, and you still have some good turn in, but you're not wearing your tires out too badly. So that with that big ass rear sway bar, and you have a car that handles quite well, but you definitely need some kind of aftermarket shocks and springs,
as demonstrated by the fire hydrant picture that
so much
shared.
Yep. but it's just a friendly car to drive. And I think that's one of the biggest things about this car is that it's so friendly and easy to drive. I don't think any of us have driven an easier to drive race car than this.
That I can say without fear of revocation. That is 100% accurate.
It feels like you're going to the grocery store, but you realize that it's been more difficult to get in and out, and your seatbelt is not the same.
And it's a little louder. Yeah.
And there's no like sound deadening. Well, there wasn't sound deadening before, but it's
like, so compared to like, yes, your Escalade, it's noisy compared to every other race car. Wasn't taxing, compared to Godzilla.
No. You don't.
Godzilla
it doesn't compare.
Fighting you constantly.
It doesn't compare to Godzilla. That's the thing.
Yep. You can get out of it after a couple hours shift and you feel fine. Like you're not beat up. It works great. But you leave it alone is the thing. Like they would say, "Oh, I don't want the ABS." No, just leave it alone.
Yes.
Power steering.
Like
right. Power steering. You don't need power steering. Well, power steering in this car is actually it's an electric over hydraulic setup, so it's not really costing you much power. It's an electric pump in the front behind the front bumper, and it works great. It's never gotten overpowered. It's never gotten overheated in racing. It works great. Leave it alone. If you really want to do something to the front suspension, you can put a little spacer of about a ½ inch between the front subframe and the steering rack, and that'll help your bump steer a little bit. But that's it. We don't even have that because it doesn't really need it. It works really well. We left the whole HVAC system in. Yep.
Dash. Yep. It's all like, it's nice to just turn on, like it's at New Hampshire. The one year it was pretty cold. And then the one time I was in the car, I was like, wow, I am so warm. And here the heat was on like 3 or 4. And I was like, yeah, I know that was you. I know it was you. Because I got out and Chris was like, the heat's on like full blast. Oh no, I did not. So yes.
Because we had all those yellow flags. I'm like, oh man, it's cold. If I was racing wait. Oh, wait. They left Oh. Well, this is just nice. Okay.
Are we just talking about the cruise control still in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
No airbags, but
leave the wipers, like leave the back wiper.
Yes.
Leave the rear defrost. Yes. Leave it alone.
And
just leave it alone.
You see it written across the bottom there. Make well-informed bad decisions. We have been where you are, new race car builder. I'm going to save all the weight and I'm going to absolutely dominate. And we have all done it. We have all ripped out everything and instantly. Actually, when we were younger, we're like, yeah, because we're hardcore. And now, no, absolutely not. No, leave it in.
It's
can
not
you get
even
massaging
instantly.
Seats? Is that still available?
It's not instantly. We didn't realize these things, and it's not because we're old. Okay, it is because all of these things we've realized that we either say it out loud or don't, or at least say like, it'd be great if we just had this thing. Like, why did we keep that? And then the next race car, we were like, no, we're keeping that.
And go way back in our episode with Hamza, keeping the meat bag. You don't realize how worn out you are until you've driven an exhausting race car for 2 hours and you start, man, that was kind of a dumb move I made about 7 laps ago. Man, I really should have thought out. This one, you're fresh. All of a sudden the radio transmission comes over. Hey, how's the gas? Oh, crap. You know what? I hadn't even thought about it. I was so in the zone. I'm so comfortable right now. I'm so not exhausted and waiting for this to be over. Just, it is. And you're as sharp when you get out of that car as you are getting into it.
I wouldn't go that far, but that means you're not working hard enough. But if you're going for a win, then yes. Okay, great. Chris has got some more tips and tricks.
And when you're building it, again, leave it alone. It has enough height in it. You can put a race seat in, attaching it to the stock sliders. So leave it alone. Mazda engineered the stock sliders and mounts to pass crash tests. I just welded on the side mount seat brackets to those, and it fits great. You have plenty of room. Just, again, leave it alone. And the car, modern cars, they're amazing. All right, so here's some tips and tricks. First off, this car is heavy. There's no way around it. We've scaled it. As raced with fuel, it's about 2,800 pounds. It's a lot. And to lose more weight, we'd have to get real aggressive with a hole saw. That they're really good at keeping you safe if you crash. That
I think you cut
is
out
weight.
for a second. Could you re-say that again, or maybe it was just me?
It said that the car is very heavy. It weighs 2,800 pounds as raced with fuel. That's heavy. That's the downside of modern cars being very good, is that they're going to keep you safe in a crash, and that requires weight. The only way you're going to get this weight out of this car is getting very aggressive with a hole saw and a cutoff wheel. And I just don't want to do that. It's a lot of work, and you might get 50 pounds off the car, maybe 100 if you're really aggressive, but beyond that, you're into structure and stuff. And I'm not going to take the structure out. I want to make sure we're going to survive.
And what kind of impact are you having on what is granted a front wheel drive car, but a very well balanced one at that?
Yeah, sure, it helps to have less weight, but the car's not slow as it is. Yeah, no, it is definitely not front of the field Class A fast, but it is one of the faster cars out there. And with a good driver, there's going to be fewer than 10 cars that are going to pass you and make it stick over the course of the weekend. Definitely fun enough to be, or fast enough to be very fun. So for fluids, the engine originally called for 0W20. That's really light for what we're doing. We've been running 5W30. The oil pressure is phenomenal. Oil temperatures, we do run an oil cooler, a fairly decent sized stacked plate cooler from a sandwich plate on the oil filter. If you cut part of the radiator support away at the very top where there was originally an air duct that cooled the battery, you can run the oil cooler lines right through there down to mount the cooler in front of the radiator. And we usually get oil temperatures around 260. That's where it settles in on hot weekends. You will notice that the water is going to be hot. It will usually settle in at around 230 on this car, and that's with a lower temp thermostat. And Mazda thinks this is perfectly fine. The original Mazda fan temperature speed is not till 235, and I've data logged it, and that's where the fan comes on at 235. So it will get up there in the 220s and 230s, and the car's perfectly fine with this. The stock temperature gauge never even moves. It's an idiot light in disguise. It just sits there right in the middle, and we've run for years like this. So if you ever see the stock temperature gauge move, then stop.
You're in trouble.
That's a problem. Yeah, you're really in trouble. We've never seen it move. Don't. But I think you do need the oil cooler on it. Although if we found if you keep the revs lower, it makes a notable difference in oil temperature. And I think that's because the car has piston oil squirters that squirt at the bottom of the pistons. And so it's just raining very hot oil in the crankcase all the time. So if you lower the number of combustion events, keeping the RPMs low, it's a little less heat you're having to deal with in the oil. We do run about a quart over full, and that keeps the car... the last car kept it very happy. This particular one requires a
it's
little
over
less,
full. That
from
good.
Our last one. Well, you do need it fuller than stock, but if it goes up a little too high, it can suck it in the crankcase breather, which is a pretty aggressive crankcase breather on this one. Fueling, if you remove the restrictor door, the unleaded fuel restrictor door in the filler neck, you don't have to do anything else, and the car will take our fast fuel jugs. That the hose you stick it in the fuel neck and it makes a seal, and it'll take it as fast as we can dump it down. 24 seconds, and those jugs empty right into the car. The vent will keep up, so that's really nice. The first time we fueled it off we had the restrictors in it. We're like, okay, this takes forever. We tried it. Let's see how it does, and it took all the fuel.
The Hunsikers did not do as well as the red cans, but.
That's because I think if we had a different hose on the Hunsikers, I think it would be better. One particular set of hose cans that we have a hose that works perfectly for that car.
Right. Correct.
Yep. Aside from that, just get in and drive. Keep your red line on the lower side. The stock red line is 6,500. These motors will do all right above that, but there's really no need to go much beyond 6. The cams are so small, they just run out of breathing, and it has a lot of mid-range torque. The torque peak is about 4,500 RPM. So once you get really much beyond 6, you're just making more heat. So you'd be surprised. We've tried running in 4th gear and 3rd gear in different places, and finding 4th gear is just as fast as 3rd in a lot of places. So don't waste it. It's less fuel, less wear in the motor, less wear in everything. Just keep the RPMs a little low. Now, what problems have we had over the years? Many of these are I'll call self-inflicted. So
but they're minimal. They're minimal.
Yeah, they are. This car has been in the top 10 a bunch of times, and then had something go wrong, so it couldn't finish that way.
Oh.
Did we lose Chris again?
Well, it seems like it.
Well, Chrissy, what was your worst incident with it that you self-inflicted?
And I'm back.
And you're back. Okay, great.
Sorry.
You going to finish your thought? Go ahead.
Yeah. First off is the exhaust. The exhaust gets very hot on this car. Very hot. If you're using the close coupled cat, it's necks down to like a less than 2-inch pipe out of the cat. And that's really a restriction. When we had a header on it, the header had a flex pipe in it. Well, even before the header, we had I welded a piece of pipe to the end of the cat. That pipe failed. The steel literally crumbled. After I put thicker steel on that, the flex joint that was just below that failed because of the heat. That didn't work. So the way we've been able to have it work is header 2, which is a mild steel header with a ceramic coating from a certain ceramist out there. And then it goes all the way down to the bottom of the car to a ball and flange style joint, not the braided line flex style joint. Those are ones keep failing on us. With the ball and flange style, there's nothing really to fail. So get that down to the bottom of the car in the airstream where it's going to keep it a little cooler, and that is good. When the flex pipes fail, depending on where they are probably right next to the fuel lines, which run up the center channel, essentially, especially once it gets near the engine bay. And if it's leaking onto the fuel lines, you're going to boil your fuel, and then you can't turn the hill in New Hampshire.
Up the hill, New Hampshire.
When there's 10 minutes left to go, and you're in 6th overall. And that's pretty crushing, let me tell you.
Ask us how we know.
Is this the joint you're talking about?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, there you go. Well, we'll have that link to all of our.
I was going to say, I was like terrible for podcasting. Yes, this is exactly what you need. Yeah,
well, because he's
ball and socket type.
Ball and socket, and it's very descriptive. But yeah,
2.5-inch exhaust fits well, but you can't really go much bigger than that because it's a really tight fit in the rear suspension where it goes through the suspension to get to the rear. So 2.5-inch exhaust is about it. It's a pretty simple exhaust otherwise to do. The other problem we had that caused us issues for a while was axles. We were using Rock Auto axles for a Speed 3, thinking, well, these are axles are supposed to be for a 280 horsepower car. They're going to be fine. Better off getting the junkyard Speed 3 OEM axles.
Say that again. You literally are cutting out, and the important parts of this story are not included.
I'm sorry.
That is actually not his fault. That was me pushing a button.
Oh, you're muting him.
No, I didn't mute him. I was doing something else, and I'm still learning the software.
Axles. Get the stock Speed 3 ones, even use junkyard ones, and clean the grease all out of them, and put Redline CV2 grease in it, and put a red straw from WD-40 or can on the inner joint, and that lets it vent. Or you can call up places like Drive Shaft Shop that will make you fancy axles if you would like. But I think the OEM version of the Speed 3 with good grease should hold up, but do not go with the Rock Auto version. These are equal length axles with an intermediate shaft, and they're kind of a pain to change. They don't pop out very easily. So, put the good grease
and when they're going to fail fairly often.
Yeah, well, we couldn't keep them together. I do have some of those Rock Auto ones that I have taken the grease out and put the CV2 grease in there in the trailer as backups. We haven't needed them, so I don't know if that option will work or not. the other problem we had is we cracked rear hubs once. Someone was being over enthusiastic about hitting curbs in New Hampshire, and to be fair though, those rear hubs were pretty old, but they literally cracked the hubs. That was exciting. So we inspect those now every time. And another time, the rear hub and bearing assembly bolts loosened up enough that the car would just randomly turn going down the straight and various other times, and just because the bolts were loose on that. So now we have those marked, so I can check them after every day and every race.
And isn't that also you found out they're cheap?
The rear hubs they're not especially cheap, but just they're not bad and they're not hard to change. So just keep an eye on them. We inspect from the back after every day now and make sure they're tight. That, and then we had the motor problem, which I still don't know why. The number one rod journal just got too hot and trashed the place. Everything else looked perfect. Still don't know why. But that's really the only problems we've had. Aside from that, the car is great. It's easy on consumables. I mean, I just changed rotors this last race because they had uneven transfer layer. They were not worn at all, and they had been on that for a couple of years. Actually, the whole time the car's been racing, they were on there. Yeah, it's been really a nice, easy, fun car to drive. Would recommend. What do you guys think?
Obviously.
Well, yeah, the doy.
Well, yeah. They're like, it's like my favorite, and yeah, it's my car. Not sure how we're gonna get rid of it because I love it, and it's a great car.
It is, but we all the time we're getting what car should I build? What car should I build? Here's your answer. Go get a nice manual Mazda 3. I can find these $2,000 range all day long. You get into the questionable title territory, they get a lot cheaper.
Yep. I don't know where the title is. I lost it at
the will sell with place. Bill of sale. All it takes is a little bit of paperwork, which we both know is a lie if we both live in this state.
Yep. Oh, it's easy to do. You can do it.
Oh, yeah. Can you?
Yeah. No. But it's definitely a car you can start off with leaving it fairly stock and gradually upgrade it over time as things go, and end up with a car that's pretty nice. Just play the Lego game from the parts bin. And the parts bin goes so deep that you could even make one of these all-wheel drive if you wanted to, using a Speed 6 transmission, a Volvo gas tank, and a CX-7 rear suspension. You could make an all-wheel drive one.
Chrissy, I just figured out what's going to happen to this car now.
I'm not making it all-wheel drive. That's how it works.
Why?
It wouldn't add any performance to it anyway. Like with the limited slip in the front and the 245s, we are never ever traction limited unless it's heavily raining. That's it. It's great.
In which case, you're still not traction limited because you've got more than everybody else, which is an advantage of actually having a heavier car.
Yep. Oh, that's it. That's all the secrets. There's not a whole lot to it.
That's quite a lot of secrets, actually, I'd say. I feel.
Not even secrets. It's just a guy who knows how to do research and, these parts.
And it's also this has been 10 years, 15 years in the making. Like every part that went bad, we fixed it with something different. So this hasn't been, okay, that now it's going to be a race car at 250,000 miles. This is a long time coming. So I feel like there's a lot that goes into it, but it's basically like, oh, shocks are bad. Need new shocks. Well, let's not do stock. Well, hit a deer. Now I need a new airbox. Let's just get a cold air intake. Like we didn't do these things all to make that a race car.
No, you started with
basically the same amount of work.
Good car.
Why not?
Right.
And it has such regular upgrade paths. The upgrade paths for all these things are easy. So give it a shot.
Yeah.
They're fun.
They are.
Cool.
Great.
Yep. Do we have a just the tip, Chrissy? Like, what's your safety topic this week?
Oh, what's my safety topic this week?
Well, while you're thinking about it, Mental and I can introduce it. Ready? Just the tip.
All right. I had to think. It's not a bad one. Actually, it's a pretty good one. The reasons of why you should be concerned about the clothes and jewelry that you wear when you work on things. So I work for a manufacturing plant. We have a lot of people that have their hands in machines all day. We do not wear gloves pretty much at all. We'll use nitrile gloves. We will not use like any kind of mechanics gloves of any sort because they can get pulled into machines often. So we talk about not wearing jewelry when we are working on machines, and also making sure that like if you have a sweatshirt that it doesn't have the drawstrings, and shirts, long shirts that can get pulled into machines. So watch what you're wearing, watch what's hanging into and around any equipment that you're using. So that's my safety tip for the day.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Do we know what we're doing next week?
We do.
Well, we have to figure out, we have to do some research about it, but we have ideas anyway.
Well, he's not here this week. He better be doing all the research.
Oh.
Well, plus what we already are doing that works pretty well. So that's part of it.
Yes, and
Okay.
this was suggested by you, dear listener. We are going to walk through exactly how we arrived at our current cool shirt setup. And that's going to be multiple vehicles. It's we're going to have Tim back. You guys are going to talk about, we'll talk about our homemade stuff. It'll be an expansion of the listener question a few weeks ago.
And
Sounds
I
great.
think a little bit about what we know about the current market.
Yes. So,
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us.
yes. Thank you, everybody. Before I hit the exit,
Do we have
thing,
an
Chris,
outro?
We do. Hopefully it works.
Waiting for it. Waiting for
I just didn't know
it.
if you guys wanted to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm about to grab the speaker and say thanks everybody for listening to Everyone Racers.
Don't have to.
Join us in the
Outro.
world of driving, building, and racing.
Thanks for downloading us. We hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Everyone Racers. We also hope you will join us in the world of driving, racing, building, because everyone can be a racer, even you. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe. It's totally free. You can go to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. Even if you hated us, give us 5 stars and tell us why. If you have any questions or show ideas, drop us a comment on our Facebook page, Everyone Racers, or email us at everyone.racers@gmail.com. You can still text pictures of your junk to me at 484-243-0455. Find us on Instagram at everyone.racers, YouTube and Facebook under Everyone Racers, and even Reddit at /E1R. Thanks again. Until next week, keep the shiny side up. Unless, like us, there is no shiny side, then just keep those wheels down.